Hey there, this is a part in a series in which I talk about my thoughts on various Sonic games. Here's the full list so you're not confused. This one's about Sonic CD, so let's begin. Sonic CD has always fascinated me ever since I first heard about it. It was like an elusive secret game only a select few had the pleasure of experiencing. At first, I had heard many express nothing but positivity towards it, but over the years, I've seen many more people have the opinion of it being quite mid. This confused me, so I felt the need to try it out for myself to see what was either right or wrong about it. I saw nothing wrong with it. This game slaps. It simultaneously gives us a unique take on 2D Sonic level design with inspiration from Sonic 1, whilst also having the most unique vibes out of all of these classics. I'm genuinely surprised that people don't like this game nowadays. It is truly the definition of an underrated gem in my eyes. Why is that, do I hear you asking? Well, that's what I'm here to explain to you today. You better get strong so you can fly to Little Planet, as we talk about Sonic CD. Oh, by the way, I used Sonic Origins for the 2D classic games because it's convenient and easy. I don't care what you think. So what did I mean when I said that the level design from Sonic CD takes inspiration from Sonic 1? Well, I haven't covered that game yet, but to put it simply, Sonic 1 has a much heavier focus on exploration and obstacles that slow you down compared to Sonic's 2, 3, and onward. Sonic CD takes a look at this side of the game and asks, what if we did that, but actually fun? And lo and behold, we got a collection of really fun stages that are unlike anything else in the franchise. Beginning with Palmtree Panic, this might be in the running for my favourite first zone in a 2D Sonic game. There's just so much room to move around and explore, it's an absolute blast. This level design is paired with by far the most unique and interesting mechanic of these classics, time travel. Throughout each level, you can find these signposts which allow you to travel to the past or the future. To actually time travel, you need to be going at a certain speed for around 5 seconds to then travel to the time period you last hit the signpost of. If you're close but lose too much speed, you also lose your ability to time travel at all until you hit another signpost. The reason to do this in the first place is to destroy the roboticizer that's hidden around every first and second act of each zone. Destroying all of them unlocks the true ending, which is just so cool. There are 4 states every zone can be in. You start in the present, but you can change to the past, the bad future if you do not destroy the roboticizer, and the good future if you do. How cool is this? Even if you don't like this game, you can't deny that these concepts are straight up genius, and I personally have a ton of fun using them. It's fun to try and figure out ways to travel to the past, and destroying the roboticizers is super satisfying. Palmtree Panic introduces these mechanics amazingly, whilst also being fun if you're not going for them. A really great zone to begin a really great game. Collision Chaos is next, and it doesn't disappoint. It focuses more on springs and launching you all over the place, similar to your average casino level, but thankfully it's not all about that. There's a ton of really creative secret areas, and the roboticizers are placed in nice places. It does get a little annoying breaking these orbs in the second act after a while, but it's not awful. What is awful is the boss fight. I'm just gonna say it, there are very few Sonic games in general with consistently good fights in them. This is an aspect of the games that really wasn't figured out until Frontiers in my opinion, and Sonic CD is no exception. Collision Chaos's fight here is really annoying, as it's literally just a pinball machine. Pinball is never fun in these games. Why did they keep bringing it back? At least the rest of the level is really fun, and that boss definitely doesn't ruin things. What's this? A good water level in a Sonic game? What a ton of events, as Tidal Tempest is great. We went from the absolute hell that is Labyrinth Zone, to the annoying enemy placements of Aquatic Ruin, to this stage, which is wide, has a lot of areas outside of the water, and obviously focuses on exploration. I never felt like there were any annoying aspects of the stage, it was all fantastic. I really like this area in particular, as it's a fair challenge to travel in time, but not too difficult. Speaking of time travel, the roboticizers have some of my favourite placements in this zone, as they're secretive, but can be found if you pay attention. I kinda like the bosses too, as it uses the air bubbles in a cool way. I guess now would also be a good time to talk about the special stages too, as they're pretty solid. You gotta destroy these UFO things around this 3D level, and it's challenging, but fun. The depth perception does mess you up quite a bit however, which I can see being a deal breaker for some. In terms of all the special stages, this one would only rank lowly because the other games have better ones. Completing a special stage gives you a time stone, which when nabbing them all, allows you to get the secret ending. Yeah, there's 2 ways to unlock the best ending in this game, and they both have their advantages and drawbacks. I've always gone for the time stone route personally, but it's just nice to have a failsafe depending on what you've done in your playthrough. Overall, Tidal Tempest is a banger of a stage, even if Hedgehog CD is better in my eyes. Quartz Quadrant is a level I always forget how much I like until I'm playing it. This zone's mechanic is these conveyors which change direction when you flip a switch, and it's really useful when time traveling as flipping it the opposite way to the direction you're running can stall it out a bit. The aesthetic of this level also stands out in a game full of aesthetically pleasing areas. You always start in a cave area with stalactites and then transition into an outside area. I'll talk more about this game's aesthetic later, but for now I'll leave with saying that Quartz Quadrant is one of the most underrated zones of the game. Honestly, I'd say that Wacky Workbench is probably the weakest zone in the game. It's not bad, I mean it's called Wacky Workbench, but the level revolves around these electric floors that launch you when touching them. This is pretty fun at first, but then you realise you gotta make your way back down to progress, and then you fall on the floor again, rinse and repeat until you're kinda not having fun. This is also the zone where I give up on finding roboticizers, as not only do I usually have all the time stones by now, they become a lot more hidden and more difficult to find, so yeah. The boss was also quite difficult to figure out, just this zone is one where I can see a lot of people tabbing out, and that's understandable. It's a shame too, as we've got the most iconic zone in the game next, so let's look at it. Stardust Speedway. I'm pretty mixed on this one, as whilst it does have a ton of action, high speed, the like, the mechanics aren't really explained well, and I don't even know where a single roboticizer is here. The mechanic of this stage is these signs, which change the layer of the level you are on when touched. They are barely ever noticeable, and I didn't even know this was a mechanic until I saw a YouTube short talking about it. I tend to complete this stage super fast thanks to the speed, obviously, and not caring about the roboticizers. The boss of this area... we'll talk about it later, I promise. So yeah, Stardust Speedway is really cool, but there's just not enough focus here to make it top tier. I'm glad this is the zone that was chosen to be used everywhere though. Finally, Metallic Madness. Honestly, this is a pretty basic zone with nothing much to speak of in the first act, even if the gameplay is really solid. The second act, however... Tiny Sonic is real! This mechanic makes the stage. How can you not love this game when Tiny Sonic is in it? Origins also gives us Tiny Tails, Tiny Knuckles, and Tiny Amy, and they're the most precious things ever! If we ever get another 3D, 2D Sonic game, I don't want that, but oh well, we need to see these in action. Yeah, a cool mechanic to add to a cool stage to end off a cool game. The mania versions of both of these zones slap, by the way. And that is all the zones and other gameplay stuff I've talked about. There is so much more good here than bad, and I genuinely can't understand why people would outright hate it. It's supposed to be a more chill, relaxed time than the other 2D games, so they try and embrace it. If you don't like the chill vibes here, that's fair. But this leads on to the next section of the video. This game is, without a doubt, the coolest 2D Sonic game out there. Watching even a single second of this game is so much more enticing than any other, all thanks to the visuals, sound design, characterization, etc. I know I already said this before, but the aesthetic of this game and its levels is just so good on so many levels. Look at Green Hill, look at Palmtree Panic, look at Mystic Cave, look at Quartz Quadrant, look at Hedgehog CD, look at Tidal Tempest. I'd say Mania is the only game that trumps this one, specifically in terms of the visuals of the levels. 3 Knuckles gets the characters, enemies, etc. right, but CD gets the levels right. This doesn't even take into account the fact that each level has 4 different looks depending on the time period. How can you not love this game? The past has a lot more greenery and life, the bad future shoves robots and metal in your face, the good future is an even more green and luscious environment than the past, and the present is a good mix of the past and the bad future. Not only does this game look gorgeous, but it also gets the characterization of Sonic and the others absolutely right. How does it do this in a 2D game with barely any unique sprites from Sonic 1? Well, it has an intro. If you've seen anything from this game, it's probably this intro, as it just gets things so right. I get a sense of determination, power, and excitement from this as Sonic runs and spin dashes around this green environment to reach Little Planet, which contrasts the green hills fantastically. Oh, and the animation is so full of life and made by the company who makes One Piece. Oh, I love it! There's also an outro cutscene which gets things so damn right too. We see various places from the game in a beautiful animated form, such as Palmtree Panic, Collision Chaos, and Stardust Speedway. Oh, I should probably also mention 2 funny guys who were introduced in this game. Yeah, if you didn't know, Amy Rose and Metal Sonic made their debuts in this game, and man are they great here. Yeah, Amy is relegated to a damsel in distress role, but that ending does a ton of heavy lifting, with Sonic bringing her down from Little Planet, placing her carefully, and then dashing off not wanting anything to do with her. See, this is how you do their relationship well, Sonic heroes. It's funny and charming, and I love classic Amy's design. I could go off, man. Now, Metal Sonic on the other hand, oh boy do I love this dude. You meet both of these characters in Collision Chaos, where after Amy does her obsessing for a bit, Metal Sonic swoops in, breaking through spikes, which insta-kills normal Sonic, and takes her away. Talk about a sick introduction. The fact that you can control yourself throughout all of this adds a layer of desperation which a cutscene couldn't do. Metal Sonic, in my opinion, is by far the best rival in the franchise in terms of what he represents. I prefer Shadow, yeah, but that's because they actually do things with him. Metal Sonic represents everything Sonic isn't. He's robotic and has no emotions, whilst Sonic is clearly shown to be cocky and takes care of the environment when no one else is. This is why the boss fight against him in Stardust Speedway is so good, as Metal Sonic is challenging Sonic to the thing he's best at: fast. Little does Sonic know this would lead to one of the coolest things ever. So yeah, all the factors I've mentioned definitely makes this game house by far the best story of all the classic games, all thanks to how much better the presentation is alone. However, there is one more detail that I've neglected to mention about this game, because I needed to save it for last. Something so incredible, so perfect, that I may need to make a separate video on it. That, of course, is Sonic CD houses not only my favourite 2D Sonic soundtrack by a landslide, but also one of my favourite soundtracks in the entire franchise, and in gaming as a whole. And to be clear here, I'm talking about the Japanese soundtrack. If you didn't know, this game has 2 soundtracks, one from the Japanese version of the game, and one from the US version. I will be talking about the Japanese soundtrack today, and probably from here onwards, because I've listened to it a lot more, and it's more interesting and stuff, so yeah. I may talk about the US soundtrack at a later date though, I won't write it off. Anyway, back to peak. The Japanese soundtrack to Sonic CD not only has some of the best sounding tracks to ever grace my ears, but it also perfectly fits the level you're in and the time zone you're at. Each level has 4 variations of the main theme depending on the time zone, with Present sounding the most modest of them all, Past sounding a lot more chill and laid back thanks to the lack of machinery, Bad Future sounding metallic-y and robotic as if you messed up big time, and Good Future just making you happy. I'll probably go over more songs than I usually do here, thanks to so many bangers being present, but I'll try not to shove too many in. Without further ado, let's hit that jukebox. Palmtree Panic Good Future is one of the happiest, most joyous songs ever made, man. I just feel so good and proud whenever I listen to it. Palmtree Panic Past is one of the most atmospheric themes out there, with such a good old-timey feel that's hard to describe. I'll just play it out. Collision Chaos has such a memorable rhythm and a marching-like vibe. You'll get it once you hear it. Collision Chaos Good Future does a great job at making you feel like you've done something good. It's such a fun listen. Tidal Tempest Past is one of the most head-empty songs ever, and I absolutely love it for that. Let's give some love to a Bad Future song, why don't we? Tidal Tempest Bad Future has such a different vibe compared to the other versions that it's kind of tonal whiplash that just works right. Quartz Quadrant Good Future is the most uplifting song in the soundtrack in my opinion. It just makes you feel so good. Quartz Quadrant Bad Future is one of the most hard-going Bad Future songs. It is overwhelming in all of the right ways. Wacky Workbench Past is such a memorable song, placing focus on the main melody and feeling wacky, yet also old-timey. Wacky Workbench Bad Future just feels intimidating. It twists the main songs in ways that work fantastically to create an oppressive atmosphere. Before we get to the rest of the level themes, I want to quickly talk about the main theme of the game, You Can Do Anything. This song is heavily looked over thanks to a certain US song we'll talk about later, but give it a listen, it has an addictive chorus. Stardust Speedway Bad Future has basically become the theme for classic Metal Sonic, and it's easy to see why when you listen to it. Stardust Speedway Good Future feels both like a party and a chill time. Just listen to it, it's good stuff. Metallic Madness Past feels like a final rush to save the planet, which makes sense as it's the last zone in the game where you can destroy the roboticizers. I love the way Metallic Madness Bad Future incorporates lyrics. The song feels like the game is telling you you messed up by not getting the best ending, especially with the lyrics saying stuff like "don't do what Sonic does" and "you can't do anything," which mirrors the main theme of the game. Boss feels like I'm walking down the street feeling like I own the place. It's amazing! Final Fever is terrifying. Not as scary as the boss theme in the US soundtrack, but it truly feels like a final push to save the planet unlike any other boss theme. Cosmic Eternity Believe in Yourself is such an incredible credits theme. First of all, the beginning section gets stuck in my head every time. Secondly, I love how this song makes you feel so damn cool by chanting Believe in Yourself, and it ends this game off amazingly.
In the end, who's on your side? Who can you trust? In the middle of the night, where will you be? If you can't find you, there's no place to go, nothing to do.
Finally, I need to mention Sonic Boom, the main theme for the US version of the game. It's definitely iconic and memorable considering it's the first main theme with lyrics in the franchise. If you live in America, of course. Honestly though, I think it's a little overloved. I see people praising this song to heaven and back, and I'm over here confused as I think the vocals are kinda uninteresting and the song never really goes anywhere. I much prefer the Japanese songs personally, but I can still have a good time when listening to it. And that is all the songs I have time for. Jesus, I wanted to try and do 2 songs in each zone and I still feel like I've done too many. Like I said before, I'll probably make an entire separate video going over the entire soundtrack with a side of the US soundtrack added in, but that'll be for a later date. I just hope you enjoyed what I've shown today, and I've already gone to add some of these to your playlist. That's about everything I can think of, so it's time to end this. I've rarely ever played a game that I consider to be an underrated gem, thanks to most games I play being fairly well known around the world, but Sonic CD is the definition of underrated. Barely anyone could play it at first thanks to being on the failure that was the Sega CD, and it was only recently when Sonic Team decided to start treating it as a mainline game alongside the other classics. If you got Sonic Origins, I implore you to go play this game again, so you can finally see the light like I have. I haven't even mentioned the Easter eggs from this game, such as the whole fun is infinite thing. I want people talking about this game as much as Sonic 2, 3, and Mania, as I think it stands amongst those as being an all-time great. Anyways, that's all for this episode. We'll be going back to 3D games for the next one, and I'm really excited to talk about it. See you then, goodbye.